Okay, some other news we are following right now. The Education Minister, Stephen Lecce, will be making an announcement this hour about protections for students from cell phones and vaping. We can tell you it looks as though this is just beginning. We see the minister to the right of your screen there. We'll listen in here.
Of preparing young people for their post-secondary education and the workforce. As a father, I know how important it is to give our students the very best education system and to prepare them for a brighter future. We want children to learn in positive, healthy, safe, and engaging learning environments that focus on what matters most. Important lifelong skills like reading, writing, and math. Now, as an MPP and parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Education, I hear from educators, parents, and students about how disruption in the classroom are impacting learning. Our caucus has led the way with local discussions with parents, teachers, principals, health experts, and students. And the message is clear. We need to act with urgency and strength to protect students and change the culture in schools for the better. This is why the changes Minister Lecce will be announcing today and are so important. They will help improve learning in the classroom, keep kids focused, and promote better mental health and well-being. Now, please join me as I welcome the Honourable Stephen Lecce, Ontario's Minister of Education, to share Ontario's plan to get kids focused in class and back to basic in improving fundamental reading, writing, and math skills. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to the amazing parliamentary assistants, Billy Pang and Natalie Pierre. Thank you for being with us. A special thanks to the Youth Association for Academic Athletics and Character Education, to our student trustee-elect, Hayden Lai, our colleagues from CAMH, the Heart and Stroke, and numerous experts and leaders and parents with us today, all of whom are making a difference in supporting student mental and physical health. I want to just take a moment to thank my amazing colleagues who have been with us on this journey for reform since day one. MPPs Lauren Coe, Dawn Gallagher-Murphy, Daisy Way, Natalia Kusendova, Laura Smith, Patrice Barnes. We also have with us today Christine Hogarth, Sharif Sabawi, and a special recognition to the individual who worked so hard to champion this cause, my friend and colleague Jess Dixon, who brought forth a motion in the legislature that received all-party support. In this government, our mission has been to keep kids in stable classrooms. It has been about stability in the life and the routine of a child. It is the first step by which we get back to the basics in this province. And it helps to protect the mental and physical health of every child. It's why, for the first time in nearly a generation, our government signed deals with all Ontario teacher unions that averts province-wide strikes. We've delivered 3 more years of uninterrupted learning with their friends and their teachers, which we know is so critical for their mental and physical health. However, that alone will not restore the academic focus and rigor and safety back into Ontario classrooms. You know, every parent and teacher we speak to has shared the growing problem of cell phone distractions in class during instructional time, in addition to the disturbing rise of vaping in schools amongst our youth. Students acknowledge this reality too. We need to be bold, we need to be comprehensive, and we need to act with urgency today as we restore focus and safety and common sense back into our school system. And it's why we are proud and pleased to unveil Ontario's comprehensive plan that includes some of the strongest measures in this country when it comes to restricting cell phone use and banning vaping in our schools. With over 85% of Ontarians confirming that they support action to curb the use of cell phones when in class, there is a growing consensus that our policy must first and foremost be focused on prevention through education to change the hearts and minds of our kids. At its core, this is an educational overhaul for the student, the teacher, and even the parent. However, our policy includes enforcement to ensure compliance and consistency province-wide. Through these changes that will be coming into effect this fall, we will be denying cell phone use during instructional time. For our youngest learners in kindergarten to grade 6 who may have phones, they will now be required to keep phones on silent and out of sight for the duration of the day. They, of course, can be permitted to use phones at lunch, for example. However, they must receive explicit consent from their teacher or the school staff. Now, for our older kids in grade 7 and up, they will be required to turn off their mobile devices or set them on silent mode, keep them out of sight when they're in the classroom. And if they do not comply, they will be asked to surrender their phones or they could be sent to the office. Our policy on cell phones is quite simple. The default this September, unless explicitly directed by their educator, for a child is out of sight, out of mind when it comes to cell phones in Ontario. The province is also requiring all publicly funded school boards to restrict access to social media on school networks and school devices so that schools are places of learning and the development of social and emotional and communication skills. And now we have to keep parents informed on their child's focus in class, and that's why, to do so, we're committing to having report cards include comments on their students' distraction levels in class too. Now, this September, we're also going to be banning vape devices from schools and school-related settings, along with cannabis and nicotine and tobacco products. You know, we heard it from the parliamentary assistants. A 2022 study confirms 40% of Ontario vapers are under the age of 25. And most of them vape for curiosity, enjoyment, and stress relief. I think we could all agree this is deeply concerning. It is unacceptable. So under this new policy, students found possessing vapes, as well as cannabis and tobacco and nicotine, will be asked to surrender them, and schools will now be required to immediately notify their parents. This policy was largely developed, if you could believe it, following the advice of students. I remember 2 years ago meeting with student trustees in Windsor and Essex, and when we spoke with them, they recommended this path forth to change the culture in schools. Now, in addition, we're explicitly banning vapes in schools. We're also investing $30 million, which we're formally announcing today, over 3 years to have vape detectors installed in school washrooms and other spaces. At the end of the day, we're talking about behavioral and addiction issues in many cases. We need to approach these issues with compassion and a commitment to help students seek treatment for those that may need it. It's why our government is also announcing a new investment of $17.5 million for the coming school year to support mental health and well-being. And these supports will help connect students and families to enhance community health and addiction services. It's a recognition that we must not only educate and enforce the policy, but enhance the wraparound supports to help our kids, be it for those who depend on phones or on vapes. It's also a recognition that so much bullying and cyberbullying is taking place in our schools, often compounded by the use of cell phones in class. So these changes and new supports are designed to counter these threats. Finally, we also know teachers and principals and school staff play a critical role, and I want to acknowledge the difficulty they have day in and day out to keep kids focused. So that's why we're going to be using a PA Day to institute mandatory professional development to train and support our education staff. We will place clear, standardized bilingual signage in every school outlining these new rules. We're also announcing funding for parent involvement committees to launch localized campaigns in the schools engaging parents, while also launching a provincial digital ad campaign to communicate to parents and a separate campaign to students about these changes and the role they play. Tomorrow, our government will be sending parents a letter that will outline our plan to empower parents to start to hold those conversations about these serious changes. Because the success of this policy hinges on you, on Ontario parents speaking to their children, working with our educators and our school boards, conditioning them to this new reality. So, of course, we need parents to be on side to help to enforce these rules, and I will back our principals and our teachers who enforce this policy each and every time. Ultimately, the changes we are announcing today to the Provincial Code of Conduct is to ensure we have one uniform provincial policy. It is my hope It is our expectation that students will respect the staff and their professional judgment on when cell phones and technology can be used in class for educational purposes. As Minister of Education, and on behalf of our Premier, we remain committed to ensuring that all Ontario students are set up for success. And I will continue to drive forward with this amazing team the Back to Basics agenda, where students learn to respect others, to communicate using social emotional skills with their friends, where academic focus is back along with common sense in our schools. Now, change will come with all of us working together, standing by our teachers and principals and education workers as they implement these new measures. And most of all, let us as a society think soberly about the generational impact this policy can have if we work together for the health of our children. Thank you, and merci. And now, like to turn and welcome to Brady Carble-Hamilton, the Senior Vice President of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada, and welcome Brady to the podium. Thank you so much.
Okay, listening into the Education Minister, Stephen Lecce, announcing some pretty significant changes when it comes to cell phone use in the classroom. So he has just announced, starting the fall of this year, kids, kindergarten to grade 6, they will be required to keep their cell phones on silent and out of sight for the entire day. Grades 7 to 12, cell phones won't be permitted during class time. This would be unless they're directed by their teacher. Social media websites will be removed from all school networks and devices. And report cards will include comments on kids' distraction levels. And we heard from the minister there talking about concerns from parents on that one.